to us all. Good morning. This morning, we're going to discuss maintaining balance in chaos. I'll start with it. We know what balance is, trying to maintain our equilibrium, to keep ourselves in control and not too worried, not too happy, not too anything, balanced. Chaos is defined as a state of utter confusion or disorder, a total lack of organization. Now, does the world feel like that's what's happening right now in our area? The other definition of it is the infinity of space or formless matter supposed to have preceded the existence of the ordered universe. Now, according to Vedanta, this would be like the unformed state before the Lord created, before Maya came into existence. So chaos is not an unnatural state. It, in some ways, is a constant state. The other thing we'll discuss is crisis. Right now we have chaos a bit. Crisis is a stage in a sequence of events, which is chaotic. The trend of all future events are determined for the better or worse. We make a decision on how we will behave. A condition of instability or danger, as in social, economic, political, or international affairs, leading to a decisive change. Okay, I think we're about there right now. We have a chaotic situation going on with the pandemic. We don't know that much. No one knows that much. They're still studying it. And we are bombarded daily with negative but real aspects of life in the pandemic. Choices we must make based on facts. But we are all interpreting the facts according to our own experiences. Do we have direct contact? Is it spread by direct contact? Is it spread by prolonged contact? Do masks make a difference? Does social distancing make a difference? Is it airborne? Is it not airborne? Should we wash our hands constantly all day long? Should we wear gloves? Should we sanitize? Can we meet with friends? These are all questions that we face every minute of our life right now. All of these things are important. I think the one thing we have to keep in mind and maintain our balance on is to actually weigh the negativity with the facts that the experts are telling us and make a rational decision on how it fits in our life. Now, almost all of the health experts, I listened to I read an article from the Washington Post in which the 7 major health experts of the United States were asked what they personally did according to these advisories that they're giving us. And even they didn't all do the same thing. They all had varying degrees with which they were comfortable. The few things they do agree on: masks deter spread, hand washing is vitally important, and social distancing makes a difference. Now, the things that they didn't agree on was whether we needed schools to start, because there are so many more aspects to this crisis or chaotic situation right now than just the health situation. We have the economic concerns. People are out of jobs. We've had to close things because it was spreading too quickly on the first response to the pandemic. Because of the lack of jobs and the lack of businesses, there's rent problems, there's mortgage problems, besides rent, many people don't have the cash for food. And the food banks are stepping in and helping out. Now, there's school tuition. In California, the colleges, though they're being online, are paying full tuition. We also have the social issues of this kind of chaotic situation. School attendance. Children are out of school right now. School is very, very important. Peer interaction is important in the development of children. And everyone knows it. Everyone sees that this is a very, very important part of development. We have found children who do not have the kind of interaction with their peers, often in later life, develop, if not, they develop mental quirks. They don't deal well with situations. Isolation is not a very good situation for human beings. We are not one of the animals that lives in isolation. We don't even live in semi-isolation. We tend to be more grouped with the herd animals, where we are part of a community, we're part of a family, we're part of a city, we're part of a community, we're part of a country. We identify with all of these groups. When we narrow ourselves down, we tend to become a bit paranoid. We tend to become a bit distrustful. This is not what we would hope to do with millions of people. In Vedanta, we say we're trying to recognize our oneness with the whole, not our individuality. We think more in terms of the whole. We also have the emotional issues to deal with. And these are very important because this tends to color your entire mind. And even if we think we're entirely rational human beings, all of us have emotion. We do have emotions. Isolation triggers old habits. Isolation tends to make you go into old fears, old habits, irrational responses, anxieties that have very little to do with the facts. And at this time in our lives, we have to deal with all of these simultaneously, which is a very, very difficult situation. This is very difficult to deal with. Usually we have to deal with one or the other at a time. In this time right now, and this is globally, not just locally, we have to deal with health issues, we have to deal with social issues, we have to deal with lack of jobs, we have to deal with our emotional issues. And we can do it because we all have the inner strength to do it. We just have to tap into it. We have gone through, every single person, I am sure, has gone through crises before. I know in Santa Barbara we have, and we have survived it. We have come out on better for the crisis. We can't give up to despondency and give up, because our very nature, our very inner nature is divine, and the divine is infinite and all powerful, all loving. We just have to tap into it. So we need to attain harmony of our personality and balance in our life. Balance in this situation means body, mind, senses, and ego made one, all working towards one goal. Now, people do this all the time in their lives. Every star athlete that you see has dedicated his body, mind, ego to becoming the best in his field. They have to take a lot of, rejection and fallback, correction. They have to train their bodies. They have to work them hard. They have to monitor their senses, direct them towards the goal, not let them run rampant. They can't do everything they want, anything they want at any time. So becoming a leader in any field requires exactly the same discipline that success in spiritual life requires. We have to learn, well, in spiritual life, you need to have all four of these: body, mind, senses, and ego working towards the one goal. What does that mean? You have to define the goal. You have to know where you're heading. And I think most of us in this time would like, well, I know what the goal is: to uncover our own divinity, or to see God, or to realize God, the Lord. We are also overburdened with a certain amount of fear at this time. I was reading a book by Swami Yatishwarananda, and he had a very interesting story. I'll tell you the story now. There was a king in one of the old kingdoms, and people started dying in his kingdom. And he got very upset and wondered. So he went to Yama, the king of death, and asked him, he said, "What are you doing? And why are you doing this? I mean, what? People are dying. What can I do?" And Yama, the king of death, said, "I only take my allotted amount." And the king went, "Oh, okay." And he went back to his kingdom, and people kept dying, and they were dying in greater quantities. And he wondered, he said, "Well, now, what is going on?" So he went back to Yama and said, "Look, this death is increasing in my kingdom. What are you doing?" And Yama looked at him and said, "O king, I only take my allotted amount. The others are dying of fear." So, and we tend to do this to ourselves. We let fear override our intellect, our emotion, everything. We have the fear of the unknown. We have the fear of death. And we all react to fear differently. Some react with despondency, and they become more and more depressed, and they can't do anything. Some respond with anger because they are angry that they can't control the situation. Usually that manifests itself in overactivity. And some react with bravado. I'm bigger than this. This can't hurt me. And I think we have seen any kind of reaction to fear in these three, which I've pointed out, and there's many more. They all motivate us to action or inaction. But how do we get to balance? What is to my mind, a rational and potentially peaceful reaction to fear? My belief is that it is faith in our own divinity, and in the Lord. And we must, to my mind, have faith. We want to be fearless, not foolish. We want to look at things in a measured way and make the decisions for ourselves. Which is more important to me? They are having discussions right in Santa Barbara right now on, do the schools open or not? We weigh the chances of children getting sick, they will, against the long-term, they do need peer interaction. And you have to weigh it out and discuss it as a community. Decide on a protocol that you would feel comfortable with. Because otherwise we won't do it. We'll become more and more fearful and we'll just tighten into our own little world. But using our rationale. Now, Swami Prabhavananda, he said the one thing we must do is pray to the Lord, and he told us how. Please protect me, make me fearless. As I said, he meant fearless, not foolish, and approach the Lord for everything. Ishwaran once again told us a 5-point protocol for life, pattern for how we'd live. We can't control life, but we can control how we respond. And the way that if we respond in a rational way, we need to stabilize the mind. We have this capacity. We are not without this capacity. Every one of us has it. We can all, well, our grandparents all said the same thing. Count 10 before you react. This is giving ourselves the space to evaluate and make a clear choice rather than an immediate emotional reaction. So we have the capacity. None of us are helpless in this. What's the easiest way to stabilize the mind? Well, I feel that we have a very good approach. We have a mantra. There's a prayer that means something to you. Repeat that. It steadies the mind. The Buddhists have it, Om Mani Padme Hum. Everyone has access to a mantra. The repetition of that mantra, if it's one of God's names, puts that imprint in your mind. The steady mind gives you the resources to deal with any crisis. And according to Ishwaran, the most important lesson to learn from crisis is to find the center of strength within you. This is something we can work on. And as I say, according to Vedanta, it's body, mind, senses, ego working together. Body, senses, mind working together. So how do we work on our body? We don't go overboard. We don't make it the sole focus of our attention, because a healthy body, if you have no mind to use, is not much use. As we have seen in some people with Alzheimer's, their minds are not there and their bodies are really healthy. Now, this is not a balanced situation. So the main process in our Vedanta philosophy is to keep your body healthy enough to do spiritual practice. Because as Swami Yukteswarananda said, you can't do spiritual practice if your body is not a certain degree of health. You don't keep it in the peak of, you don't put so much attention on it that it swings into sense gratification. You don't decide you dislike it or hate it because it's in the way of spiritual realization, because both super attention and super ignoring it, when you get down to it, it's the same amount of attention on your body. So you have a modicum of attention on your body. Keep it healthy, keep your, so you can do your daily activities, you can do your work, and you're not, overly tired, you're not overly this, you're not overly that, you're healthy. Okay, then we go into how do we control the senses? That's a really difficult one because the Lord created the senses to go out, to take you away from your inner, to make the play go on, to keep you very, very interested in everything outside. We have to start using some kind of discrimination and say, chocolate cake does not make me happy if I have 4 of them. It makes me sick. Looking at a beautiful sunset is wonderful, but sometimes it's nice to close your eyes and see the beauty within. Okay, I'm really tired of feeling things all the time. Can I just relax? We have to discriminate on what will maintain the health of our body and our minds by reining in the senses. Like they have a beautiful description. The senses are like a runaway wagon, a runaway chariot with a drunken monkey at the reins. Doesn't know where they're going, what direction they're going in, and we are so easily taken out by our senses, distracted. I mean, you can be sitting there. I remember we had someone move up from Los Angeles, our convent down there. It's right next to the freeway. You hear the freeway noise constantly. You hear helicopters going over constantly. And she came up here and lived with us for a year. And finally, after about 3 months, she said, how do you meditate in that temple with all those chipmunks outside and frogs? Now, I mean, this is how our senses take us out. Swami Shraddhananda came up and he said, you can channel any noise you hear when you're meditating and make it part of the ambiance for meditation. He said, the noise of the freeway becomes the sound of the Ganga. It's all in our attitude. If we decide to focus on something in the senses, we will become more and more attached to it. So we take our focus off. If we don't take that focus off, we become completely bound in the physical world. Now, how do we do, but what about our minds? Oh, they're even better. The mind is up there thinking everything. And we're thinking, we're feeling, we're willing things to happen. And we had another devotee who gave us all personality tests to decide how we operated in the world. And it was very interesting because the questions were not clear cut after you've been in Vedanta for 15, 20 years. How do you feel about this? Well, you feel sometimes this way and sometimes this way. So you come out kind of in the middle of everything. But if you tend to be a person who thinks more than you act, or your thinking is a stronger trait, too much thinking leads to inaction. And it also leads, analyzing everything completely leads to a lack of compassion and you become cold, like a scientist. Sometimes scientists have trouble relating to other people. We had friend whose whole job was to teach scientists how to talk to their the other employees in their company because they couldn't talk to each other. They honestly couldn't. They just blurted out the fact, and that was it. No consideration of the other person. Okay, in Vedanta, this is the Jnanis, the Jnana yogis. Discriminate, discriminate, discriminate. However, everyone has always said in Jnana yoga, you must balance it with bhakti yoga. Otherwise, you become a dry intellectual who has no heart. If you're feeling, which is the emotional people, often it leads to too much mental whirlpools because you can't discriminate. So this is the same thing. We must balance ourselves. Bhakti yoga and Jnana yoga are the two wings of the same bird. They have to be in balance. You can't let one, you may have one that is more to your personality and to your liking. Develop that, but always balance it with the other. Don't be led by your emotions because that is a very, very roller coaster ride through life. When you willing is applying your will, and that usually drives you to action. These are the karma yogis. Your will says this will happen and I will make it happen. If you don't control that one or direct it to the Lord, that can lead to undirected activity with no particular reason and leads to another distraction, just action for the sake of action with no reason for doing it. Oh, I can't sit still for 10 minutes. Now, one thing this pandemic has shown us is we can sit still and we will start thinking more. This willing things to happen is endemic in the Western societies because we have built up the whole society by conquering everything. We tend not to sit still, read a book, or sit still and think. Einstein said his best times in life were just sitting. He thought of his greatest discoveries while just sitting and thinking. So we balance karma yoga with Raja yoga, where we sit and direct our thought toward the Lord. We learn to concentrate the mind on one thought. Many of you do this every day in your life. You may not be aware of it, but if you get extremely concentrated in the action that you're doing, if you're a musician, it's easy. You get completely concentrated in the music and people can walk in and say something to you and you can't hear them. I think if you're an artist and you're in the creative zone, I know that you can have people walking by and they don't exist. You're so focused on what you're doing. I think this happens with everything. Woodworker, people who like to do beautiful woodworking, people who like to do cooking. Another one, I think we're all developing that these days, as well as a few pounds. Bread making has become an art in and of itself, if you can find the flour. But once we get involved in this kind of thing, seriously, the world ceases to exist. Now, if we can use that same skill and that same ability to focus on the Lord, and we all have it. You've all experienced this at some point in your life. Then we can attain that balance in this kind of chaos, because we do have the power of concentration. Now, Swami Prabhupada also said, one of the things that we have to do, he didn't say this, I'm leading up to what he said. We have to form the habit of it, because every one of us has a fallback on old habits. Habits are extremely hard to break, but they can be at any time in your life. They used to have a saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you can. It takes longer, takes more patience, takes a lot longer, but you can teach them. So what Swami Prabhupada said, remember that the Lord is the sanctuary. Practice that attitude, then the mind will go naturally to the Lord. Make a habit of placing a part of the mind in the center of your heart, in the presence of the Lord. If you do that in times of stress, the mind will automatically go there. But in order for the mind to do that, you have to make it a habit. Now, this takes daily attention, because we are distracted. We do go out. We look at nature most of us are now, since our activities with people are slightly curtailed or majorly curtailed, we are enjoying nature more. This is, we can absolutely try to see God. I was watching Ken Burns' series on the national parks, and John Muir found God and religion in nature. And he wrote many, many things about it, and how just seeing Yosemite made his heart expand. Just seeing Yosemite, seeing it, made him feel the grandeur of God. Now, we can do that too. We can find our activity or not activity that makes us have that expansion of heart, that expansion of consciousness, where we are experiencing a hint of what the divine is. If we pursue that and make it a habit, then we can realize God, and we will. There is no doubt ever that we will realize God. No one fails. Sometimes it takes a little longer if we don't really pursue it, but we do not fail. Then we have, once we've dealt with the mind, or tried to deal with the mind, we have still the ego to deal with. And the ego is ever present, ever asserting itself, always saying, I am me, and this is mine. It's the most natural thing in the world. This is my car. This is my house. This is mine. It's my family. It's my city. It's my country. If we continue to identify with that small I that has ownership of all of these things, it does not make us happy. It does not make us peaceful. It does not make us content, because as soon as we take the ownership of all of these things and do not see the divine within them, it creates another reason to react to the outside world, because I have to protect my things from them. So what we try to do is, yes, feel the love, feel the oneness with it, but know that, as Holy Mother said, the whole world is your own. No one is a stranger if you want peace of mind. Absolutely no one in this world is a stranger. They are all part of you, and you are part of them. No matter where anyone lives, no matter what color they are, no matter what language they speak, no matter what religion they pursue, they all have exactly the same feelings you and I do. And that, to my mind, is a universal truth. Everyone is striving for the same things. They want to provide for their families. They want to have a little success in life. They want to have peace of mind. They want to feel safe. They want to be productive, and they want to have friends. We all have the same needs and desires as human beings. It's not, as soon as we get possessive with our egos, and that is our ego, we run into problems. We run into conflict, identity with the small self, and that's this body, this mind, this idea, always runs into conflict. When you have identified yourself with the divine within and the divine in everyone else, you are in tune with the consciousness of the whole world, or the whole, all of consciousness. The world isn't even there. We'll put it all of consciousness. And the identification of the oneness. Now remember, when we started, we talked about we have a goal in life. You have to keep that in mind. And you have, in order to achieve that goal, we went over, we have to change our daily behavior. We have to take the things that we learn and put them in our daily behavior. If we think that everyone is a part of us, the divine in them is the same divine in us, then we do what? Treat your neighbor as yourself. Don't make a judgment until you walk in someone's moccasins. We have to do this. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Every religion has said it. Even if you're not in religion, they say it. So this is reshaping habits. And the tools that we have are our mantra. We do japa, which is repetition of the mantra when we can't. Japa is one of the most important things in life, I think, because often our minds are lost in anxieties, formless anxieties. We just don't feel that things are safe. We don't know exactly what it is, but we're really anxious. The way that I have found that you can stop that is continual japa. Just sit down and do it. And even if you fall asleep doing it, you've fallen asleep with that in your mind. And your mind is trainable. Oftentimes, if you have fallen asleep doing japa, you wake up with that thought in your mind. Now that's good because you haven't all of a sudden thought, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Oh, God, how am I going to do that? If you can, japa also often leads to a meditative state where you can concentrate. Doing japa helps train the mind and makes it come under control. And we do have to control our minds. Yeah, we are going through an extremely difficult time right now. There's no denying that. It's all over the world. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know which, it's all over the media, which tends to give us the catastrophic, drastic news every day. We have to look at even what the media is telling us, which is all true, which is true. The numbers are true, as far as we know. But we have to look at those numbers and evaluate them. And yes, the world has gone through pandemics before. The world has gone through these kind of global catastrophes. We do come out in the end. We do. This is not, the end of the world. This is a readjustment. Like they say, the stock market readjusts itself. Well, this is a global readjustment. We do have the power to ride this wave out. Every one of us. We're not going to be, beaten down by the wind. Look what happened when Katrina happened in Louisiana. They have rebuilt. This is the way humanity responds to a catastrophe. Look what happened. Look at the tidal waves that happen in Bangladesh, the floods and tidal waves that happen in Bangladesh. They rebuild. Look what happens when in Santa Barbara, it's rebuilding. This is the nature of human beings and the power of human beings, because inside is the power of the divine. Now, I'd like to end with another thing that Swami Prabhupada said. Now, I have to keep this one in mind all the time. Remember, if you have problems, if your mind is upset, it is neither this nor that. It is your mind is not in the Lord. And I would open if anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask. If you're around, or if maybe Fanya will unmute you if you have a question. You're welcome to ask them. I hope all of you are doing well, keeping yourselves in your comfort zone of activity, staying well. And everyone has a different comfort zone. And we all know that. So stay in yours. Look at all the directives, look at all the advice, and see which ones are especially speak to you. But do take care. And we are constantly praying for everyone. So we'll end with a chant, and you can join us if you want to. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
We actually have one question.
Oh,
that came up while we were chanting.
Okay, we have a question.
How did the natural disasters of the fires and mudslides help prepare you for this pandemic?
That's a really good question. Well, okay, let's take them separately, because we personally did not experience the mudslides. We were isolated up here, but it was as if we were in a protected bubble without water and without electricity for quite a while, but we all know how to camp. So that one, when we got down and saw what had happened, it was like, oh dear, devastating, devastating. However, what I heard from people who had actually gone through it, they all came out with almost unanimously, I know now that things are not important. People are important. Taking care of people, keeping up relationships, bonding together as a community. So, and I saw that in every way, the bonding together of the community, people helping people, people taking people in who didn't have places. The fire, quite frankly, it's like a natural occurrence here in Santa Barbara. It's not, oh dear, the fire, it's when are we going to have another fire? Because it just happens in our area. And we take every precaution we can. Everyone does all of their clearing that they have to do. You use common sense and get things ready. We have a devotee who has really gotten us ready for, we are prepared. We have fire hoses, we have a fire drill, we have advanced preparation. So you do what you can, you do it in the most logical manner you can, and then trust in God. That is basically what we did. We left the property at 3 a.m. and trusted in God. And we had foremen who stayed up here and worked like crazy to keep it safe. And the fire department was here, but you trust in the people that are taking care of you, and you trust in the people that do sacrifice themselves, and you trust that the Lord will take care of them. And if we had a couple of devotees who were burned out in the Painted Cave fire and the tea fire, and they said, well, they quoted the Zen poet who said, yes, last night my house burnt down, tonight I can see the moon. We can always find, everything happens for a reason. And often it's to find our strength within that disaster or chaos. Any other question?
Not that I can see.
Okay. Then we'll give a translation of the chant. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From Brahman floweth all, yet is Brahman still the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Thank you for coming.